Peace be upon you. This is Saeed Mirza from MediaNarReason.com, and today we're going to be looking at a video of Hamza Yusuf. He's a well known Islamic preacher in the US, and the question that he was asked is actually a simple question, and it's an interesting question. Um, the question is, did God create evil? And we find the answer to this question in the Quran, um, put very succinctly, very concisely. But as I keep saying the same thing over and over again, these doctors of the law, they're not interested in what the Quran has to say. They have their stories, their fictions, the writings of dead scholars, and obviously they are pushing an agenda. So every time they're asked a question or asked to give an opinion, they go on into rambling and really avoid answering the question from the Quran. Because they don't believe in the Quran. This is what I'm trying to get at. Now, Hamza Yusuf, let's just look at his biography, if you will. This is from a Wikipedia article. Hamza Yusuf, born Mark Hansen, born 1958, is an American Islamic scholar and co-founder of Zaytuna College, a neo-traditionalist. Yusuf is a proponent of classical learning in Islam and has promoted Islamic sciences and classical teaching methodologies throughout the world. So Zaytuna College, this is a liberal arts college in California. To continue, he is an advisor to both the Center for Islamic Studies at the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley and the Islamic Studies program at Stanford University. In addition, he serves as vice president for the Global Center for Guidance and Renewal, which was founded and is currently presided over by Abdullah bin Bayah. He also serves as vice president of the UAE-based Forum for Promoting Peace in Muslim Societies, where Abdullah bin Bayah also serves as president. The forum has attracted huge controversy for its close ties to the UAE dictatorship, as well as Hamza Yusuf's personal support for authoritarian leaders since the Arab Spring. Yeah, so that's Hamza Yusuf. A lot of people, when they listen to me, they attack me and they say, "What's your agenda, Saeed? What's your agenda?" And to be clear, my agenda is to study and teach the writ of God, the Al Kitab, which is in the Quran. That's my agenda. It is to warn men. It is to follow the teachings that God has given me in the Quran. That's my complete agenda. I'm not funded by anyone. It's a fair question, what's your agenda? But for some reason, this same question is not posed to the doctors of the law, as in, what is your agenda, doctor of the law? Are you promoting the Quran, or are you promoting fictions? Are you promoting an ideology that is not based in the Quran? Are you promoting governments that are oppressive? What's your agenda? So this is a question that needs to be asked these gentlemen. In this interview, you will see that Hamza Yusuf does not bring any verses from the Quran to answer this question or to support his understanding. He repeatedly uses the Hadith, and also there's a story of a saint in there. And his own ideas, like I keep saying, these doctors of law, they're not interested in promoting the Quran. They're not interested in the teachings of the Quran. They use it as a bait and switch tactic, where they say, oh yeah, God sent down a book, Quran, and then they say, no, wait a minute, we need these other writings to answer questions.
All the Christian philosophers that I have spoken to, all but one, to my recollection, would vehemently fight with me when I would say, is God all powerful? Is God all knowledgeable? Is there evil in the world? Yes, you believe in God. Then God created evil. I mean, I'm trying to be a very simple approach to it. And I'd get fights back and never make any progress. There was one who was different from that, who said that there's no way to get out of that God created evil, and went through the process. Right. I really don't know the Islamic view of whether God created evil.
Bismillah. So Muslims believe that there's something called the qadar, which is traditionally translated as fate, destiny, but the root meaning of it is the idea of measuring something out. So there's an idea that God has measured everything out. He's given us enough rope to save us or hang us. And
so Hamza Yusuf here, obviously the audience here is the Western intellectual, if you will, class. So Hamza Yusuf is dressed appropriately for that occasion. He has a suit on. You will notice in other lectures of his where the audience changes. If it's a Muslim audience, he'll put a turban on or wear the Islamic clothing. So the doctors of law, they're very good at this. It's almost second nature for them. They understand the audience and they dress appropriately and they talk appropriately. So you're gonna see in this video that he's going to be using the big words and he's gonna sound very academic. Also notice the setting. This is a very cozy setting. We have a fireplace there, and it's very important that you pay attention to the backgrounds and the clothing and the ambience, because this is a production. This is a production, and this is propaganda. This is propaganda. This is what they're doing. You already are impressed with this gentleman, even though before he even speaks. That's the whole point. And so you will listen to him and just accept what he has to say. Now, as a Muslim who was born and raised in a Muslim family, in a Sunni Muslim family in Karachi, Pakistan, I can assure you that Muslims do not know what qadar is. They do not know what destiny is. They are like the Christians and the Jews and the Hindus and the Sikhs in that they have a very superficial view of the world, and they are ignorant of the teachings of the scripture of the Qur'an. So they don't know what qadar is, first of all. And second of all, they're locked in the same struggle that all the other people in this world are, atheists or non-atheists. And that is the struggle for survival, because they have been, they don't have time to think about these things. These things are left up to these doctors of law to think about, to ponder, to reason. And ultimately, what they do is that they twist things. They twist the verses of the Quran to justify an agenda, to push an agenda. This is what they do. So I can assure you that even though this idea of qadar is in the Quran, Muslims are not aware of it, and this has nothing to do with really the question. The question is, did God create evil? You will see he won't answer the question directly, and there's a reason for that, because his audience is not going to like the answer when the Quran clearly states what the answer is.
So moral evil is a result of the sinfulness of human beings. So what comes from that? And there's also an understanding that a lot of natural evils are either one of two things, that God is, there's a punishment that could be involved. It's not for us to decide, but it could be a punishment, or it could be an elevation in rank and to take martyrs amongst them. For instance, our Prophet said that anybody that dies from a house collapsing on him is a martyr. It's a martyr's death, so they go straight to heaven. So all the people that died in the earthquake by their houses collapsing on them, they're considered martyrs.
Now, see, this whole spiel that he gave you about martyrs dying because of natural causes such as an earthquake is wrong. It's false, because in the Quran you will find many examples of the people before who denied their messengers, and God seized them for their punishment. And how did God seize them? He caused the earth to swallow them, or he sent against them a howling wind to destroy them, or he drowned them, or he rained down upon them from the sky a punishment. So according to Hamza Yusuf, all these people, they were martyrs because they died a violent and natural death. But we know for a fact that's not the case. They were punished for their sins. So you can tell here that Hamza Yusuf is going against the Quran. And this is what the doctors of law routinely do. They have their own ideas, and they make it sound like, this is coming from the Quran, when it's really not. This is their own vain desires. In this case, he's saying the Prophet said that, which is basically him saying that Bukhari, this guy who no one gave him the authority to do anything, he went around after Prophet Muhammad died, many years after his death, and he collected these fictions and fables and stories and wrote them down. And this is what Hamza Yusuf, for the most part, follows, like the other doctors of the law.
And also dying of sudden death is a martyr's death, like in a car accident, falling from your animal. Dying from like stomach cancer or something like that is a martyr's death. So there are many deaths, the Prophet said, that are martyr's deaths because of the the intensity of the death, and also the lack of time that sometimes that people have to make amends and do these things. So
So this is a complete fiction. This is completely false, not supported by the Quran at all. There's nothing in the Quran that says that if you die of a stomach cancer or you die in a car crash, obviously because the Quran was revealed before these things. But regardless, this whole intensity, obviously, death is intense. That comes upon someone suddenly most of the time. There's nothing in the Quran about them being martyrs because of that. God will seize us when He sees when our time is up. This is it, and He has determined a time and a place and how we will die. Doesn't mean that you become a martyr. And by the way, Hamza Yusuf, if he has read the Quran, sometimes I'm suspicious if they actually even read the Quran or understand it, because if you see in the story of Pharaoh was drowned. Pharaoh was drowned, and at the time of his drowning, he repented, and God did not accept his repentance. So this whole spiel about you not having time to repent, this is not supported by the Quran.
So I think we believe that God created everything, but we don't attribute evil to God as a kind of just appropriateness. So we have a formula that the Prophet gave us that said all of good is in your presence and evil is not attributed to you. But we
So when he says the Prophet gave us the formula, what he's saying is Bukhari gave us this formula. This guy who is unknown and who was frankly never given the responsibility to do anything that he went around doing. Bukhari told him that the Prophet gave you this formula. And again, I keep saying the same thing. This is not in the Quran.
Believe that evil is part of God's creation. God obviously created the evil in the world by allowing it to happen if it's moral evil, and then by the events of natural evil that are clearly created by God.
Yeah.
So he's just beating around the bush. He's not answering the question. The question can be answered pretty straightforwardly, actually really straightforwardly, if you just quote the Quran. And I'll just do that to spare you the trouble. This is chapter 113. In the name of God, the Almighty, the Merciful. Say thou, I seek refuge in the Lord of the daybreak, from the evil of what He created, and from the evil of darkness when it gathers, and from the evil of the blowers on knots, and from the evil of an envier when he envies. So this is the answer to this question. He's just going because see, the thing is, these guys actually they like listening to themselves talk, and they are talkers. That's what they are. They're good with words. And this is a sorcery they do, and that's what he's doing. He's gonna beat around the bush and philosophize about this question when the question is actually the answer is really straightforward. Did God create evil? Yes, He created evil, and that's it. But he's not gonna answer that because the people who are listening to it, they do not accept this answer. They don't like that answer. See, this is really what it is. So Hamza Yusuf has to go around and around, but not answer the question.
The moral evil, God certainly allows it, because if you believe in God and it's happening, then it's obvious that God allows it if you still want to believe in God. But you roll it back to say, when God created the universe, did God know that evil would occur?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, so-called open theology in the Christian tradition, modern today, not mainstream, but not insignificant, would say that the future is open, and God is omniscient, that God knows everything that can be known,
right.
But the future cannot be known because it hasn't occurred yet.
Right.
So we're not undercutting God's omniscience, because we're saying that, like, can God lift a rock that's too heavy to
logical inconsistency.
Yeah, logical inconsistency. So there's no undermining of God with a logical inconsistency. So they say the future is a logical inconsistency to know. So that's a coherent explanation.
Right.
It may not be satisfying to you, but it's a lot, or to anyone. But it's a logical consideration.
Well, there's a famous saint in Turkey who.
So now he's going into a story about a saint. Notice there's nothing about the Quran. There's nothing from the Quran. What the Quran has to say about this question, because Hamza Yusuf is not interested in the Quran. Like the doctors of the law, he is interested in following his own vain desires and following stories written down after Prophet Muhammad's death by characters such as Bukhari, Muslim, etc., and also supporting an ideology, a sectarian, divisive ideology, Sunni or Shia. That's what he's interested in, and obviously he's interested in amassing wealth. This guy is well fed, he's well appointed, he has his fingers in a lot of pies. I'm not arguing that you should not try to be successful. What I'm arguing against is using God's signs as a crutch to barter the verses of God for a cheap price. This is what I'm arguing against. These men are not doing the duty that is given to them. The duty was to study and teach the writ of God in the Quran. The duty was to warn men to enjoin good and forbid evil. This is the duty. And the duty is not to promote stories written down by Bukhari and other dead scholars that have nothing to do with the Quran. The duty is not to sit and ponder about what God knows or what God thinks. Think about that for a minute. God says that he created man from a sperm drop. This is our station. And God is the all holy, the all creator, the all loving, the all merciful, the almighty. This is God. So we have no business in speculating whether God knew something or God did not know something. Why did God do something? Why God did not do something? God said in the Quran, he says, he will not be questioned about what he does, but they will be questioned. So we need to know our place. These men do not understand their place. They are speculating about things that should not be speculated about. And now we're going to listen to this story of a saint, and what the saint has to say about this question: did God create evil?
Who had his students, and he wanted to appoint somebody to follow him. So he asked all his students to reflect that night on what they would remove from the world if they could. And so the next day he comes, and the first one says, I'd get rid of murder because it's the worst thing. And the next one says, I'd get rid of alcohol because it's the source of so much evil. I'd get rid of adultery. I'd get rid of, they all giving their things they'd take out of the world. And it got to the Saint Marquez Effendi, and he said, I would not take anything out of a world that God created for its purposes. And so that's just, I think, a very Muslim view of things, that there are wisdoms and God knows why. And there's a theodicy of the grand scheme of things, right? That we just don't know. But God does bring good out of evil, and then evil serves its purposes in that people rise up and oppose it, that people bear the burdens of oppression and still maintain faith in God.
So this story of the saint, right? What does that have to do with this question? Nothing. We should be surrendering to God and submitting to His will. I mean, that's what the Quran says. That's what the word Muslim means: to surrender to God, to submit to God, to accept His will, to be patient. There's no controversy. There's no denying that fact. But again, I fail to see why this story is relevant to the question at hand.
There's a wonderful, it's not a true hadith, but I like it anyway, that says anybody who reaches 80 years of age still believing in God is forgiven. So
well, I got a couple to go, so I'm almost there.
Yeah, but
like I said, these guys have no problem with sharing stories that, in this case, he knows it's not true. Even though I deny the complete hadith literature, he accepts hadiths, right? And those hadiths he accepts. This is not one of them. This is a fake hadith, but he has no problem promoting this hadith, promoting the lie. It just goes to show you the people you are dealing with, and you give so much respect to who they are.
I think the idea, if you live long enough, you're going to see a lot of very troubling things.
That's a great one. I like that.
Yeah.
Even if it's not true, if it's not a real one, but I'll quote you.
This guy is obviously he's gonna run with it, and even though he knows that it's a lie, he's gonna go ahead and use it and quote Hamza Yusuf. to be honest with you, these guys are on the same page. Uh, because what you're seeing is you're seeing the meaning of the allazina kafaru, those who are indifferent to warning, and the al kafirun, those who are the false claimers of guidance. This is what you're seeing. These guys are the same agenda. These guys are well appointed, well fed. They have connections. They've done good in this world for themselves. For the most part, there's no difference between them. And that's really what I'm trying to show you, that the Quran actually treats of both of these characters, these archetypes. So we need to be very careful with anyone who does not promote what the Quran is teaching and promotes other things besides the Quran, because they are an enemy to the believers.
You. Yeah, no, that's very good.
God is forgiven.
So well, I got a couple to go, so I'm almost there.
Yeah, but I think the idea, if you live long enough, you're going to see a lot of very troubling things.
That's a great one. I like that.
Yeah,
even if it's not true, if it's not a real one, but I'll quote you. Yeah, no, that's very good. But the overarching point, though, is that either God knew or didn't know the amount of evil in the world when God created the universe. I mean, and once you reach that nodal point, you have to make a choice.
Yeah, and one of the things that I find really interesting, like I've been in a lot of places in the world, and the people I've seen that suffer the most often have the most profound belief in God. And the people that sit around with their kind of wine, cheese, and crackers discussing evil, and why I don't believe in God, they actually very often have wonderful lives. And so there's kind of an irony in that.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I'm not sure that gives an answer to the question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a sociological
observation.
Yeah, and it's a fair one. I just think that
I mean,
there needs to be a coherent approach to God. I mean, if I'm going to believe in God, then we need to have a coherent approach. And
so this guy at the end basically shows his hand. He doesn't believe in God, and the reason he doesn't believe in him is because he is trying to approach God in the wrong manner, as in he thinks that he can reach God with his own intellect, with his own logical workings. But God has already revealed to us his knowledge he about himself. He has revealed in the Quran who he is, what the actions he does, why he does them. This is all in the Quran. But because this guy is arrogant, and he does not want to accept that God would send revelation upon a man, and this is his sticking point, if you will. So he will continue to be confused and just go around in circles, because at the end of the day, God has not guided him. It said in the Quran that so they have rejected the truth, and so they are in a confused state. So he is in a confused state, and nothing we can do about it. At the end of the day, Hamza Yusuf is not doing anything about it either. He's not promoting the scripture of God and saying, look, the answers are in there, and using it as a weapon. All he's doing is he's bringing out stories about this saint, and the fictions written by Bukhari. So he's not really fulfilling his duty.
And to shirk from the idea that God is omnipotent and omniscient, and yet distinguish, and yet the evil is something that God has allowed in order for us to have free will, with the free will defense, the theodicy of free will.
That's
a classic defense in terms of we needed that.
And that only deals with moral evil. It doesn't deal with natural evil.
Exactly. And it doesn't deal that effectively with moral evil.
Because now we have sociologists. I mean, that's one of the things Dostoevsky points out, is that the time is coming when they'll tell us there is no crime, because the sociologists are going to say, well, the reason they did this is, so there's kind of a hard determinism that says, oh, that criminal couldn't have done anything else given the life that he was given. So there are those arguments. And again, I think I personally believe there's compelling arguments on both sides, and you have to make your choice. I've chosen the side of God, and other people chose the side of either nothingness, randomness, or the side of the devil.
Well, I hope I'm not in the latter category.
It doesn't seem like that, but yeah, seem like a mensch.
So, obviously, we got to the point where the conversation basically ended with no answers, as these conversations usually do, because there's nothing, there is no answers, because the source is not there. The source is the Quran. If he would have used the Quran and given him the answers from the Quran, then he could have seen, okay, this is God is answering these questions. But Hamza Yusuf is not interested in the Quran, and like the other daughters of law, he's interested in basically pushing himself, showing that he's this learned guy and full of wisdom. So, like I mentioned, chapter 113 already gives us the answer to this question. And God is the all knowing, all powerful, and omniscient. And He knows what is, and it says in the Quran, He knows what is before them, what is after them. And they do not encompass any of His knowledge unless He so wills. So, the answer is for us, given to us in the Quran. God has already given it to us in the Quran, if we just care to study the Quran and look for these answers. But at the end of the day, God guides whom He wills, and He misguides whom He wills, and that is God. God is not questioned about what He does. Anyway, I think I should wrap this up. God willing, the next time. Peace and blessings be upon you.